The Broken Spur Saloon was louder than a thunderstorm and twice as dangerous. The air buzzed with cheap whiskey, cigar smoke, and the raw edge of men gambling away their last dollars. But when Loretta McAllister swung open the doors, the noise dropped like a shot deer. A few drunk cowboys choked on their drinks. Even the piano player stopped mid-tune. She was fire in motion, tall boots caked in dust, spurred heels clicking like loaded hammers. Her crimson duster billowed behind her like blood in water. Beneath her wide-brimmed hat, her eyes scanned the room with the slow calculation of a hawk. She didn't walk, she owned the floor, every boot step a declaration. Loretta Red McAllister didn't fear hell. Hell feared her. She spotted the gambler. He was hunched at the far table, shuffling a deck of cards with a twitchy nervousness that gave him away. Maybe it was the way he kept glancing toward the exit or how he flinched each time someone clinked a glass. More likely it was the silver pocket watch he'd stolen from her the night before, still chained to his vest like a trophy. He hadn't just taken it. He'd lied to her. Smiled while he did it. She picked up a half-empty bottle from a nearby table and hurled it. The glass exploded on his head, sending him sprawling, cards flying. Gasps and curses filled the saloon as chairs scraped and boots shifted. Guns half-drawn. Tension crackled in the air. "Sit down," she barked, her voice sharp enough to shave wood. "Or draw and die. Your choice." Nobody moved. Loretta strode over the splinters and wreckage to the gambler, now groaning on the floor and bleeding from a temple cut. She knelt, unhooked the watch from his vest, and flicked it open. Tick-tick-tick. Still working. "You can lie to a lot of folks in Red Bluff," she said. "But not to me." He didn't respond, just whimpered, trying to pull himself up. She kicked him back down and stood, dusting off her coat. From the back of the room, the saloon owner muttered, "One of these days, girl, someone's gonna put you in the ground for this kind of ruckus." She looked over her shoulder, her smile sharp as broken glass. "Then you better pray it's someone who don't miss." There were whispers that followed Loretta wherever she went. They called her too wild to wed, too dangerous to tame. She'd been on the run since she was 15, after her father got shot between the eyes by his own partner during a bank job gone wrong. Her mother disappeared soon after, leaving Loretta to ride with what was left of the gang, men who taught her how to shoot, ride, and lie. But never how to trust. That came later, when it was already too late. Out in the street, the sun was sliding westward, bathing Red Bluff in the kind of gold you'd kill for. Her horse, a chestnut mare named Vengeance, waited just outside, tied to a post like a warhorse itching for the next battle. She mounted, flicked the reins, and rode toward the hills. Dust rose behind her, chasing the wind. The saloon faded behind, but the sting in her chest stayed. It wasn't the gambler. It wasn't even the violence. It was the echo of something deeper, loneliness masquerading as pride. She didn't let it surface. She never did. But sometimes, when the sun set just right or the wind sounded too much like a voice she used to know, it crept up on her. Atop a ridge, she dismounted and sat on a flat rock, watching the plains. Somewhere out there was a future that didn't involve blood and bullet casings. But damned if she knew how to reach it. She pulled out the watch again. The ticking was steady like a heartbeat. It had belonged to her father. She'd taken it off his body after the ambush before the sheriff's men arrived. It was one of the only things he hadn't pawned. It used to tell her when it was time to run. Now it just reminded her of how far she'd gone without ever arriving. A low whistle broke the wind. Loretta turned sharply. A small figure crested the hill, a kid maybe 13, wide-eyed and barefoot. He froze when he saw her, hands raised. "I ain't mean no trouble," he said. She didn't lower her gun. "Then what are you doin' sneakin' up on a woman sittin', with a pistol on her hip?" He shrugged. "Saw the horse. Thought maybe you were lost." She chuckled darkly. "I ain't been lost a day in my life. But I've been running so long, I'm not sure I ever stopped." The boy nodded, uncertain. "You're Loretta McAllister, ain't ya?" She didn't answer. "My ma says you ain't got no soul. Says you killed 6 men with a poker chip and a whiskey bottle. Your ma drinks too much." "Maybe. But she's right scared of you. So's everybody." Loretta slid the pistol back into its holster and leaned forward. "You scared?" He hesitated. "No." "Then you're either real brave or real stupid." He grinned. "Maybe both." She laughed for real this time. It felt strange in her mouth, like using a language she'd forgotten. The boy sat beside her. "I ain't got nobody either," he said quietly. She glanced at him. "You're too young to be talking like that." He shrugged. "Old enough to know the world don't care." She reached into her coat and tossed him a biscuit. He caught it like a snake catching prey and devoured it. They sat in silence for a while, just the wind and the ticking watch between them. "You ever think about settling?" he asked finally. "Settling's for folks who want to be found. Don't you?" She didn't answer. Just stared into the horizon, where the sun burned down like judgment. Later that night, back in Red Bluff, the town marshal cornered her outside the livery. "Red," he said, tipping his hat. "We've had enough. Next time you crack a man's skull in my town, I'll run you out. No exceptions. You could try." "I ain't joking, girl." She looked at him hard. "Then you best be real sure before you put your hand on that badge." They stood there a moment, eyes locked. He backed down first. She turned to the stable hand. "Saddle vengeance. We ride at dawn." "You leavin' again?" The boy from the hill had followed her into town. She looked down at him. He was trying to act brave again, jaw clenched, eyes defiant. "Why do you care?" "Because you came back. I needed hay." "That ain't why." She crouched, looked him in the eye. "You're gonna do just fine in this world. But don't follow folks like me. I'm the story parents tell their kids to keep 'em close to home." He shook his head. "You're more than that. You just don't see it yet." Loretta straightened. The night was cooling. Somewhere a dog barked. A baby cried. The world kept turning. As she walked away, the boy called after her, "Someone's gonna come along one day, you know. Someone who don't run and don't scare and don't try to change you." She paused but didn't look back. "Maybe," she said. "But if he's smart, he'll keep riding." Then she disappeared into the dark, taking her pistol, her watch, and her ghost of a heart with her. And in Red Bluff, the legend of Red McAllister grew another layer thick. Not because she caused trouble, but because no one could figure out what she was running from. Not yet. The morning came with a dusty haze and a wind that whispered change. Red Bluff, stubborn and sun-baked, had seen countless men come and go, most of them forgettable, some of them dangerous. But no one expected a man like James Calder. He rode in slow, not like someone running from something, but like a man who already knew where he was going. His coat was fine linen, too clean for a place like this, and his boots had polished despite the road dust clinging to his hem. Still, he sat his saddle with the ease of someone who had worked cattle in a past life. He had the look of money, sure, but not the kind that flaunted itself. His wealth wore gloves. It didn't shout, it whispered. The town barely noticed him at first. A new face among many. But the saloon owner did, wiping a glass with suspicion as James tied his horse and stepped inside the broken spur. A different kind of quiet fell when he entered, less fear than curiosity. He removed his gloves methodically, tucking them into his coat. His eyes, cool and steady, swept the room. Not judging, not searching. Just taking it all in. "Whiskey," he said, voice smooth but grounded. The barkeep poured without asking for coin. Men who spoke like that always had coin. James took a sip, then glanced toward the far table. Empty now, but the scars on the floor and wall still whispered of the chaos Loretta had left behind the night before. "She always leave a mark?" he asked casually. The barkeep didn't answer at first, then muttered, "Red McAllister don't play nice." James smiled faintly. "I'm not here to play." He finished his drink and asked for directions to the land office. The saloon owner narrowed his eyes. "You set in roots?" "Perhaps." He left without waiting for conversation. Outside, the sun baked the buildings and horses shifted under its weight. James walked the main street with a pace that didn't care if people stared. The land office clerk was a weasel of a man, eyes too close together, sweat already gathering at his collar. "Mr. Calder," he said after glancing at the papers James slid across the desk. "You're from Austin?" "Originally, yes." "And you want to purchase the Wheeler parcel just east of the town line?" James nodded. "And the adjoining 10 acres near the canyon bend. I understand it used to belong to the McAllister family." The clerk blinked. "That land's cursed." "I don't believe in curses." The man shrugged. "That's between you and whatever ghosts live there." James signed the documents, slid gold coins across the counter and left. It was too easy. Things were always too easy until they weren't. Word traveled fast in Red Bluff. By sunset, every tongue wagged with news of the rich man who'd bought cursed land. Some said he was a railroad agent. Others, a fortune hunter chasing silver veins. Only one person didn't care for the gossip, Loretta McAllister. She stood at the edge of town, one boot on a watering trough, watching him as he rode past. He met her gaze for a moment. Didn't smile. Didn't nod. Just saw her, then kept going. Later she found him again. The sun had dipped low, and the saloon lit up with oil lamps and bad decisions. James sat at a table with a map spread before him, a glass untouched at his elbow. Loretta entered without ceremony, coat slung back, pistols visible. "You buyin' this whole damn town or just the land under it?" she asked. He didn't look surprised. "Just the parts that interest me. You bought my father's land. Didn't know it was yours. You know now." He looked up then. "Are you here to shoot me or make conversation?" "Depends how this goes." He gestured to the chair across from him. She sat, arms folded. "What are you really after?" she asked. "I'm a builder," he replied. "Railroads, towns, futures." She snorted. "That sounds rehearsed." "It's also true. Men like you come through here all the time. Talk big, leave bigger messes. I'm not here to change Red Bluff. Just to invest in something that might outlast the dust." She stared at him, searching for the lie. It wasn't that she didn't believe him. It was that she didn't trust anything that sounded that clean. "People are talking," she said. "They always do." She leaned forward, voice low. "My father died on that land. Bled out next to the canyon bend where your surveyor was pokin' around last week." "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, and meant it. "Don't be. He earned it." James watched her closely. There was no weakness in her, but there was pain she didn't bother hiding. "I'm not the enemy," he said quietly. "Not yet." A silence stretched between them, taut but not empty. The kind that only happens when two people recognize something dangerous in each other, familiar, mirrored. He folded the map. "Would you like to ride the land with me tomorrow?" "Why?" "To see if it's really as cursed as they say." She stood, eyes narrowing. "All right. But not because you asked nice." "Understood." She walked away, but not before glancing over her shoulder once. Just once. The next morning broke early. Fog hugged the ground like secrets. James waited by the corral, his horse saddled, his coat drawn against the chill. Loretta arrived with vengeance, silent but not cold. They rode without speaking at first. The land stretched wide and empty, the sky too big for comfort. They passed dry creek beds, skeletal trees, and bones half buried in the dust. At the canyon bend, she stopped. "This is where it happened," she said. James dismounted, walked a few paces, and stood still. He didn't ask questions. He didn't offer comfort. He just let the place speak. "He trusted the wrong man," Loretta said finally. "Taught me better." "You trust anyone now?" She didn't answer. They sat on the edge of the bluff, legs dangling over the red rock. Below, a hawk circled something unseen. "You don't talk like the others," she said. "I was raised by a banker, but I ran with wranglers till I was 20. My brother died young. I left home not long after. Everyone's running from something. Or towards something." She didn't laugh, but she didn't scoff either. After a long pause, she said, "Why me?" "What do you mean?" "You could have dealt with anyone in town. Why call me out?" James considered that. "Because you're the only one not lying to themselves about what this place really is." She looked at him, really looked this time. He wasn't what he appeared. There was weight behind the charm, something bruised under all that polish. "Or maybe," she said, "you think you can fix what you don't understand." "I don't want to fix you, Loretta." The way he said her name made her breath catch. No one ever said it soft. "I don't need taming." "I didn't say you did." They rode back as the sun dipped behind the hills, quiet settling between them like something earned. That evening in the saloon, James found himself in a poker game he hadn't planned. Loretta watched from the bar as men tried to size him up, mistaking civility for weakness. One bold cowhand shoved a stack of coins forward. "I'll raise. And I'll throw in something better, Red's horse." Loretta stood instantly, hand on her revolver. "Try that again, you limp piece of cow dung." James raised a hand gently. "Let me." The table fell silent. He looked at the cowboy. "That mare's worth more than your dignity. Fold." The man scowled, then did. James laid down a straight flush, collected his winnings, then turned to Loretta. "Care for a drink?" She considered him for a long moment, then nodded. As they clinked glasses, the saloon buzzed again, but not just with talk of James Calder's quiet wealth. Now they spoke of something else. Of fire meeting steel. Of a woman who'd never been touched, never been tamed, sharing a drink with the one man who didn't try to own her. It wasn't love. Not yet. But it was the beginning of something too complicated for words. And for the first time in a long while, Loretta didn't feel like running. Not yet. The nights in Red Bluff had started to feel different. Quieter somehow. But not with peace, more like the pause before a storm. Loretta could sense it in the air, the way you sense rattlesnakes even before they hiss. Her instincts had kept her alive this long, and they were stirring again. James Calder was still in town. Still polite, still composed, still poking around land and ledgers. But now he was doing it with Loretta riding beside him more often than not. They weren't a pair in the traditional sense. There was too much history in her bones and too much mystery in his, but they shared something rare, an understanding forged not through words, but through what they chose not to say. Red Bluff noticed, of course. Every sideways glance and hushed whisper added weight to their connection. The saloon girls teased. The old-timers scoffed. The sheriff pretended not to care, though he watched them like a hawk circles a wounded hare. One afternoon, after a long ride across the South Ridge, James and Loretta stopped by an old watering hole. She dismounted first, stretching her back, the sunlight catching the bronze of her revolver. "You still think you can make this place grow?" she asked, eyeing the cracked earth. "I don't think," he replied, tying his reins. "I plan." She scoffed. "Planning don't mean much out here." "It does if you've got patience. And steel. People here ain't interested in being molded." He walked to her side and bent down, running a hand through the dry soil. "Maybe. But maybe they just need someone to believe there's more than dust and dying." She watched him closely. "You talk like someone who's lost more than you admit." James didn't look up. "I have." She waited, but he didn't continue. That was the way of things between them. He gave just enough to keep her wondering. Just enough truth to keep her close. They camped that night near the riverbed, the firelight dancing between them. Loretta drank coffee straight from the pot, boots kicked off, hair loose for once. She looked different like that. Softer, though no less dangerous. James stared into the flames, then asked, "Do you ever wish you'd left sooner?" She didn't need clarification. "I tried once. Got halfway to California. Then I heard a rumor someone was using my name to pull jobs. Couldn't let that go. Your name carries weight." "It's a curse," she said. "Everywhere I go, folks expect blood or miracles. I don't deal in either. You ever think it's time to stop running?" She laughed bitterly. "Ain't running. I'm surviving." He nodded slowly. "And surviving's enough? For most folks, it's all there is." He looked at her, then really looked, at the scars on her hands, the faint tremor in her jaw when she let herself feel anything. He reached for the flask at his hip and passed it to her. "To surviving," he said. She took a swig, wiped her mouth. "To not getting caught." The fire crackled between them, sending sparks up into a sky full of secrets. Neither of them spoke again that night, but something shifted in the silence. An agreement neither signed, but both understood. By dawn they were back in town. That same morning, trouble arrived. It came in the form of a man named Clay Braddock, a bounty hunter known for his cruelty and his appetite for spectacle. He rode into Red Bluff with a posse of 4, each one meaner than the next. Their horses kicked up red dust as they came to a halt in front of the sheriff's office. Clay dismounted, tall and lanky, face weathered like an old fence post. His black duster bore the marks of many kills, and the way he moved, slow, deliberate, always with a smirk, told everyone exactly who he was without a word. He nailed a poster to the front of the saloon. Loretta's face. Her real name. Her price. Wanted, Loretta Red McAllister. $5,000. Dead or alive. By noon the whole town knew. James stood in front of the land office, reading the notice with careful eyes. He didn't react. Didn't speak. Just studied it like a blueprint. Inside the saloon, Loretta sat at the corner table, glass untouched. Her fingers were trembling just slightly, and she hated that. She'd lived with this shadow for years, but this was the first time it came so close to the surface. Red Bluff wasn't a place she loved, but it was a place where she wasn't hunted. Until now. James walked in, folded the poster, and sat across from her. "They know," she said flatly. "They do. I should go." "No." She blinked. "No. If you run now, you'll never stop. Again. And this time they'll follow. I can handle them. Maybe. But why should you have to alone?" She looked away. "Because it's all I've ever known." James leaned forward. "Let me help." Her voice was a whisper. "Why?" He didn't hesitate. "Because you matter to me." She didn't cry, wouldn't, but something cracked inside her. Just a hairline fracture. Enough to let the warmth in. Outside, Clay Braddock stood in the street, hands resting casually near his belt. He called out, loud enough for every ear in Red Bluff. "Loretta McAllister. Come out and make this easy." The town froze. Loretta stood slowly. James stood too. "Don't," she said. "You're not going out there alone." She drew her revolver, spun the chamber. "You stand between me and them, Calder, and I swear." He reached over, touched her hand. "You're not alone anymore." It was the gentleness that nearly broke her. The steadiness in his voice. No judgment. Just certainty. They stepped outside together. Clay grinned when he saw her. "There she is. Didn't expect you to have company." "You've got the wrong girl," James said. Clay chuckled. "Not likely. This here's Red McAllister, worth 5,000 cold." "She's worth more than that," James replied calmly. Clay's eyes narrowed. "You planning to interfere, rich man?" "I'm planning to end this without blood." "Well," Clay said, stepping forward, "ain't that a pretty idea?" His hand twitched toward his gun. Loretta moved first. Her shot was fast, clean, a single crack that sent Clay's hat flying and grazed his shoulder. Before his men could react, James fired two. One shot into the air, one into the dirt between them. "Stand down," he barked, voice iron. The posse hesitated. Braddock staggered back, bleeding, stunned. Loretta stepped forward, gun still raised. "Next one's between the eyes." Clay stared at her. Then at James. He saw something he didn't expect. Resolve, not bluff. Something unmovable. "Fine," he spat, clutching his shoulder. "Ain't worth dying for." They rode out within the hour, bruised but breathing. The poster remained on the wall, fluttering in the breeze like a threat not quite carried through. That night, the town buzzed again, but not with judgment. With something closer to awe. Loretta stood on the balcony of the saloon watching the stars. James joined her, glass in hand. "You didn't have to stand with me," she said. "I did. I've never owed anyone. You don't now. But I want to stay." He looked at her, quiet. "Then stay." She didn't answer, not with words. Instead, she took his hand in hers. No promises. No declarations. Just the truth of that small gesture. And for the first time in her life, Loretta McAllister didn't feel like she had to run. Not tonight. The wind howled through Red Bluff like a warning, dragging dust and tension in its wake. It had been 3 days since Clay Braddock rode out, wounded pride trailing behind him like a broken spur. 3 days since Loretta McAllister stood in the street with her pistol drawn and her past bare for the world to see. Most people kept their distance now, not out of fear but respect. She had proven what many already suspected. She wasn't just a legend. She was the storm they all whispered about. James Calder stayed close, never pressing, never asking for what she didn't offer. But she saw it in his eyes, concern, admiration, something deeper he wasn't quite ready to name. Loretta didn't push either. Feelings were like fire in the desert. If you let them spread too fast, they'd scorch everything in their path. Still, something between them had changed. They moved in rhythm now, a quiet, unsaid understanding binding their every word and glance. He was still fixing fences on the old Wheeler land. She still carried a gun everywhere. But their silences were softer. Their nights longer. And their mornings came with coffee made for two. It would have stayed that way, balanced, delicate, if not for the rider who came at dawn. He came hard and fast, a blur of sweat and dust. His horse collapsed on the edge of town, dead from the effort. The man slid off, limping, coat torn and bloodied. Loretta saw him first as she was hitching her saddle, and her stomach sank. "Gus?" she asked. The young man looked up, face pale, eyes wild. "They're coming." She grabbed him by the collar. "Who?" "The Braddock brothers." Clay brought kin. 10 of them. Maybe more. They're less bounty men, more butchers. "Where?" "Camped 6 miles east. Said they'd take Red Bluff by sundown. Said they'd burn it down if you didn't give yourself up." Loretta's jaw clenched. Her fingers tightened around Gus's collar until he winced. Then she let go and turned away. James was already behind her. "You can't go alone," he said. "I'm not hiding." "I know. But there's a difference between standing your ground and walking into a massacre." She mounted her horse. "Then get ready. Because they're not coming for me. They're coming for blood." By midday, the town was preparing like it hadn't since the war. James gathered every man willing to stand. Loretta walked them through cover positions, firing angles, fallback lines. She moved with the precision of someone who had planned for this moment her entire life. "No panic. No doubt. We can't win in the open," she told them. "We let them come into the main street. Tight quarters. Limited range. We make them fight for every step." James stood beside her, rifle slung across his back. "You think they'll hesitate?" "No. That's our advantage. They won't think. They'll just charge." "What about you?" She glanced at him. "I'll be in front." He stepped closer. "You don't have to prove anything. It's not about proving. It's about finishing." He searched her face. What happens after? She didn't answer. The sun dipped low, painting the canyon in gold and blood. The sky stretched wide and silent, holding its breath. And then they came, riders in black and brown, faces wrapped, guns already drawn. At the head of them was Warren Braddock, Clay's older brother, built like a bull and twice as mean. His voice boomed across the valley. "We're here for Red McAllister. Hand her over and maybe the rest of you live." Loretta stepped into the open, hands empty, gun still holstered. The town watched from windows, barrels peeking through shutters. The wind kicked up her coat. She didn't flinch. "You want me?" she shouted. "Come get me." Warren grinned. "Your funeral." The first shot cracked like thunder. Loretta dove behind a trough as the street erupted. Dust exploded, bullets tore through wood and glass. James fired from the balcony above the general store, picking off riders one by one. Gus manned the back alley. Old Tom Jenkins, half blind but stubborn, took the east window with a scattergun and a curse. The Braddocks pushed hard, but they didn't expect the resistance. For every foot they gained, they lost a man. Loretta moved like lightning, firing, reloading, ducking, rising. At one point she saw James take a bullet in the arm. He didn't fall. Didn't cry out. Just switched hands and kept firing. But they were still coming. Warren dismounted, walking now, shotgun in hand. "Red," he shouted over the chaos. "You think this town can save you?" She stood from cover, eyes locked on him. "No," she said. "I think I'll save the town." She fired. Missed. He fired. Didn't. The blast hit her shoulder, spinning her to the ground. Pain lanced through her body like fire. Blood soaked her shirt hot and fast. But she stayed conscious. She crawled behind cover, teeth gritted. James saw her fall. Rage like nothing he'd ever felt surged through him. He dropped his rifle, grabbed the shotgun from Tom's perch, and leapt into the street. He walked straight into the line of fire, a madman, fearless. The townsfolk screamed for him to stop. He didn't. He reached Loretta, helped her up. Her face was pale, blood in her teeth. "You stupid son of a," she started. He smiled through the gunfire. "I told you. You're not alone." Warren raised his weapon again. James turned, faster than a man should move, and pulled both triggers. The blast hit Warren square in the chest. The man stumbled, stunned, dropped to his knees. He looked up with hate in his eyes, and collapsed. The remaining Braddocks froze. One by one they dropped their weapons. Silence followed. Unbelieving. The gunfire stopped. The wind returned. James turned back to Loretta. She was half conscious, leaning against him. "You're bleeding bad," he said, voice tight. "I've had worse," she muttered. "I'm not letting you die." "Wasn't asking." He carried her inside the saloon. Gus ran for the doctor. The town, in stunned awe, began to breathe again. That night the bodies were cleared. The wounded tended. James stayed by Loretta's side, refusing to rest. She drifted in and out of sleep, feverish and pale but alive. By morning she opened her eyes fully. "Still here?" she rasped. "Of course. You always this stubborn?" "Only when it matters." She tried to laugh, winced instead. "I didn't think anyone would ever stand for me like that." "You don't have to think it. You just have to believe it." She reached for his hand. He took it. Outside the town gathered. Someone had painted over the bounty poster. Someone else started hammering out the damage on the saloon wall. Life, as it always does, tried to resume. A week passed. Loretta healed slowly. James stayed near. The land he'd bought remained quiet, but no longer cursed. Just waiting. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the wind softened, Loretta walked onto the porch, arm in a sling, eyes scanning the horizon. James joined her, handed her a tin cup of coffee. "What now?" he asked. "I don't know," she said. Maybe I stay." He smiled. She looked at him. "I still don't need taming." "I never wanted to tame you," he replied. "I just wanted to stand beside you." And so he did. And so she let him. And the wild heart of Red Bluff, once called too wild to wed, beat steady for the first time in a long, long while.